Greetings and salutations. Welcome to another On the 50 with Coach Moeller. And these never get old. We've been doing this for a few years and always have a little off camera fun and get a chance to review some things. Sometimes shouldn't be on camera. I really don't appreciate the insults on my gray hair, Coach, but thank you. I want to change the background color to get my hair more brown. That ain't going to work, big fella. But you're not Mr. Brown. You're losing. You got some widow's peak up there as well. Anyway, back to a focus program. Good week this week, Coach. I look at the season, and I know you do too. It's kind of like a college class. You start out and you introduce your team to two-a-days and here's what we've got, and you go to all the previews and all this, and then you get into the projects and exams and midterms and quizzes. You're a teacher, you do that all the time. Mm-hmm. This was a midterm. This was the midterm. It literally could be the midterm to getting to a state final, getting through week 8, but I think Delta posed a lot of unique issues. Tough program, looks a lot like us. They want to be a little bit like us. Mike talks about that, Coach Vickers. Physical, running game, control the clock. And where they might lack in explosive players, they accomplished a lot against us. But you knew coming in this was going to be a good ball game. We all anticipated it going, and it ended up being, in a lot of aspects, pretty good. So talk about the Delta game and some of your key takeaways.
Well, they did exactly what we thought they were going to do.
Yeah.
Load up, try to stop our run game.
Yeah.
They were going to try to speed the game up by slowing down, keep the ball on the ground, milk the play clock, etc. And we thought special teams would play a big role, and it did. And we knew we were going to have to stop the run and things like that. So it kind of played out kind of how we thought it might, and we just knew we had to do our part, execute on our end, and hopefully things would fall into place, and that's kind of what happened for us.
We're such a running team, and you like to run the ball, and Rex worshipped running the ball, and we just loved it, and we still do. And you talked about a little bit off camera about why people think we're, Air Coryell here from the 80s and the San Diego Chargers with Dan Fouts and Dan Marino with the Dolphins. We're throwing the ball so much. And it's true. We're not throwing the ball any more than we used to. It's 9, 10, 11 pass attempts a game. But it is true what you said. We're getting some real explosives from the passing game, which looks like so much more, but it's not. And talk a little bit about, you've always been wanting to throw that ball, 30%, 25% of the time. But, boy, you are getting some great-looking explosives from Caden Kreinbrink and your receivers. I mean, Jackson Lonizak and Ethan Gray, and good on the list. You're getting some really good production there.
Yeah, I think our efficiency this year has been much higher than what it has been in the past. And then the guys we're getting the ball to have been very explosive in what they're doing. Jackson Lonzak took a 6-yard outcut into 65 yards. And we haven't always had that. And Jackson's just an explosive special player in that regard, that he can do that. And then you throw in there other weapons we have in the pass game. Ethan Gray's got, some of the nicest hands we've ever had.
Butter, just everything.
He's
real easy. Real easy.
Extremely smooth in everything he does. And then, if we get the ball to Garrison out of the backfield, Baxter from the wing spot, even Thomas out on the flats and things like that, we can hurt teams that are going to load up to run the ball with our play action and things like that. And our offensive line has been protecting extremely well this year.
I think Nick Miller, stop there for 1 second, because you're right. Nick's like, you talk about us being a running team, a wing team, and traps, and get downfield, and we don't give up sacks. We just don't do it. Now, obviously, part of that is the schematics of how you want to throw, and there's play action holds some of those blitzers sometimes. But Nick and Matt Bryan and Todd Spangler, Howie, they don't give up sacks, Case. They just don't do it.
No.
One a year maybe. Really, the numbers are there.
That's kind of where we're at right now, knock on wood. But when you give Caden time and give him a clean pocket, he can put the ball where we need it.
Oh, yeah.
He was on point Friday night.
Really
and
was.
Again, got the ball where it needed to go. And we thought we saw some things on film that we could take advantage of, and certainly we hit a big play with Baxter that we thought, was a play that we could hit and it would be a big one for us. And then, throw Isaiah Badenhop in there, and he's kind of emerging as another weapon out
Where'd
there.
that dude come from? And he's been there all year, but whoa,
Well, and here's the other part. We ran 36 offensive plays. And that's not very many.
Nope.
So when you look at we don't throw the ball ever. Well, we threw the ball 9 times, 10 times, 9 of which were in the first half, and we probably only ran, I would guess, 20-something plays in the first half. And 5 or 6 years ago, we were running on average 55 plays a game. So when you get a game of only 36 plays, you're not going to have a lot of guys with touches, and sometimes your numbers aren't like what they ought to be. We didn't have 500 yards of offense. Well, we didn't run very many plays. Part of that is because of the running clock. Part of it was because we had some explosive plays. Instead of a 6-play 65-yard drive, we had a 1-play 65-yard drive. So, that kind of skews your numbers a little bit, but we're very efficient with what we did Friday, and it showed up on the scoreboard.
Pick your poison at this point, or we'll play it any way you want to play it is kind of the way you can look at these games. And there has been questions. Caden's got a big arm, Kreinbrink. Big arm, maybe one of the biggest arm, maybe the biggest arm we've ever had in the program's history. Guy can really reach all areas of the field, throw it 50, 60 yards comfortably. Mm-hmm. No one really talks about the comfort in the pocket, though, and some of that play action that gets people. And Baxter Barrett was wide open. I mean, that thing looked wide open the year before with Garrison Cruz, wide open against him, same play, same kind of design. But you go back and you look, the first throw that Caden Kreinbrink made soared on him a little bit. Mm-hmm. And Garrison almost got it because he's an exceptional athlete. But that has been something that Caden's had to work on a little bit, because a guy with a big arm who's got a nice pocket can kind of sometimes, just load up and want to throw 8,000 miles an hour. I think Caden's done great work on working the entire field, all the throws. But that throw, I thought, okay, are we going to get all of a sudden the 4th and 7 on the sidelines, which was brilliant, and the out to Jackson, which was brilliant, and then the easy, nice, smooth throw to Baxter. These throws were just next level.
Yeah. The one to Ethan
That was awesome. That was a tremendous throw.
I don't know if people understand exactly what Caden had to do. He had to drop that over a flat defender in front of the deeper defender and put it right where Ethan could catch it. And Ethan made an NFL catch getting both feet in. But
the catch and the feet and the 4th down conversion.
That was a tough pass. And part of that was me for putting, we had 2 receivers out wide there. We would have been off with just one, but we kind of got that guy underneath that. But
because that second receiver drug that underneath defender in the zone,
and he just placed it exactly where it had to be, and with the right amount of touch. And when you talk about Caden and his throwing, you don't always talk about touch. I mean, he's throwing,
John Elway howitzers.
Yeah, he likes to fit it in tight windows, and he can. But he can put some touch on it, and that was a great pass right there.
I thought I was just really Caden Kreinbrink. As I walked away from this game, I just I was walking back to the office thinking, hey, he made some key plays, and he may not be the most mobile guy, but you will run him.
Yeah,
and you have no fear, and he's a tackle wrecker, and he can get the extra yards finishing forward, and he's kind of a bigger dude, right?
The best play he had Friday night was he pancaked the kid on a sweep. He tossed the ball, turned around, engaged a guy, and drove him downfield 5 yards and pancaked him.
Did you want your quarterback doing that to people?
You know what? It looks good.
Well, you reward some of that stuff on Saturdays, so sure he wants to pancake somebody.
I think he was probably more excited about that play than any pass he made, which, it shows the kind of kid he is. He wants to be a football player. He's not just a pretty quarterback.
Let me get the red shirt on. Don't touch me. I don't want to. He wants to touch some people. He win the run game.
He wants to do that. He wants to run the ball. He likes the QB sneak, which is quickly becoming a big play for us. When you go for 8 yards at a pop on it. So, those are things we may start doing more of.
His development has been fantastic. And again, you're exactly right. We're sitting here in the pre-show talking about people think we throw the ball a lot. Well, the throws that he makes and the plays that we're making off those throws, now those are such big plays that you think there's like 12 behind him, but they're not. He's really making key plays in those rare throwing moments, and those are game breakers. Those plays that he made, those throws that he made, and Jackson Lonizak, those are game breakers, Case, and those are frustrating for a defense that said all Liberty can do is run the ball. So let's just load up. Wherever 30 goes, there's going to be 4 guys watching that dude because they shut him right down, which was great. And you said, all right, here we go. Play page 2. Boom. I'm probably page 1 for you because you knew it was coming. But great job by Caden Kreinbrink. He just was exceptional. I think this was his best game, although he has played a lot of good games.
Yeah.
This one was exceptional. And I don't think you disagree.
No, he He's getting better and better every week, which is what we need.
You know, we've avoided talking about Kellen Weimer all year because the national press talks about Kellen Weimer, and you see every tweet and X and whatever it's called, and Instagram and whatever, and he's obviously evolving. And Nick Miller told me in two-a-days last year, don't sleep on Kellen Weimer. And we're like, oh, okay, sophomore, and he's getting tall, and his mom's tall, and of course his mom is a great athlete. Yeah, dad's marginal, mom's a pretty good athlete. True though, Brianna Flory was a great athlete. And I'm like, okay, Kellen Weimer, good. He's going to be good. Like we don't have good players, Nick.
Yeah.
Tell me something I don't know. You've had good players here for a decade, and all of a sudden, he grows into this size where he's really projectable, and he's playing games and he's doing good things. How does it feel going into a Sunday or a preparation or a Monday practice, knowing that you've got a guy there that is just that good? And I know that he's not even they probably see him as a great player as a sophomore in college.
Mm-hmm.
That's what probably Ohio State says. Not today, not tomorrow. Sophomore, we're going to make him a guard, or we're going to give him all Big Ten selection kind of guy. But how do you feel about having a player like that doesn't give up sacks, that doesn't miss his assignments, and just takes care of business every week in and week out?
Well, it's a big security blanket, when you need, tough yard and things like that. We can go behind him. He's got a lot of tools,
yes,
obviously, that the next level likes, and I think is still just scratching the surface of what he's capable of.
That's it right there.
And he's young; he's still a junior, but you've got good size, good athleticism, and he fits right into that mix of guys that we've had in the past. That okay, we need a yard, we're going behind him. You think about the Bockelmans, the Boxes, the C.J. Johnsons, and players like that, the Demelines that we've had. He fits right into that mix. He's really special right now. As long as he continues to develop and get better and better, and the great thing about him is he's working to get his teammates better.
Yeah.
He's a big team guy and is very unselfish and at this point been pretty humble about everything.
When you look at, and you never look at next year, but you do play kids and get snaps and try things, and when you're in games with running clocks, you can experiment with certain things, developmental players, all those things. Next year, you might have the two biggest tackles in the history of the program. Roger Weeks reached out to me last week. We did a cool piece on the 1980 team and Mike Vickers and his career heading into the Delta game. And Roger Weeks is a big man. Roger Weeks today is a big man. Like if he suited up today, you'd say that's a dude. But you got two of these tackles in terms of size, and we just don't have that kind of size around here. How is that gene pool evolving to get size? I know the Bockelmans, there was a move in. There's a VOAG move in. They wanted to be an FFA, but the Weimers are Liberty. I mean, these are big people. In our day, we didn't have these kind of size guys.
Well, I think that goes back to
the Grambos, but I mean,
right. Our nutrition and strength program. We're probably 20 to 30 pounds heavier at almost every position than what we were 10 years ago. If we've got a 270-pound tackle, 10 years ago he'd have been about 245, 250. We have guards that are 210, 200 pounds. 10 years ago would have been 180. Our running backs are 215, 190, 195. Those used to be 160 pounds, 180-pound running backs. Yeah. So the commitment to taking care of your body and preparing your body and really getting it to a next level is probably the difference there. And we've had a lot of guys that have bought into that, and we're doing as a staff a better job of monitoring that during the season. We don't want to lose 10, 15 pounds in season, which in years past that would happen.
Sure.
Because of the grind and you're at school, you can't eat as much, and we just didn't pay attention as much. And then at the end of the season, it's like, wow, you were 215 at the beginning of the year, now you're 195, and we don't want that to happen.
I definitely think that the strength and nutrition in season, the maintenance programs, the out of season commitment, I think people really realize how committed we are to that part. Mike was talking to my Coach Vickers, saying, "Hey, you guys look great in uniforms and you've got great size." I think there's a lot of that. I think they're really committed year round. Like they're not just football season or in the two-a-day preparation. Rex would have you drink chocolate milk and different things. Mm-hmm. This is a different thing. This looks a lot like what they do with the college level.
Yeah,
with the nutritional focus.
And I think a big thing is, in years past, you'd always have one or two kids that would do that. Now we've got like 25, 30, 40 guys committed to doing that, and now it's filtering down. They're coming in from junior high. What do I got to do to gain weight? And they're doing it, and the parents are, helping with that as well. And so, as you get younger and younger, and it's good nutrition. I mean, we're not eating sloppy. We're not eating unhealthy.
It's very clean protein.
And you see it earlier and earlier, and our junior high program has benefited from that. Our freshman and JV programs have benefited from that, and obviously the high school.
Certainly, see a guy like Jackson Ward, who went from kind of a nice looking athlete to he came over to the house this summer and he'd been chicken 5 meals a day in the weight room. Whoa, that neck went from pretty ordinary to he ready to play some football, and he's getting some snaps in games that matter as a freshman. So you're right, it is transferring to that junior high. Liberty Center, big win over Delta. And a very important win for Delta. We felt like Delta was going to be a big test physicality-wise, and they were. But now we move on to Wauseon, a team that traditionally always has 2 or 3 threats. When you're doing a threat assessment of Wauseon, people want to say, look at that record, and they're not very good. We've kind of had success against them. This Wauseon team looks way better to me on film, and they certainly look like they've got some threats that could outman us and outflank us if we're not playing good football.
Yeah, they've got a lot of athletes.
Yes.
It's a little bit different than Delta, where Delta had some big, strong kids up front. I don't think Wauseon has a lot of size. They have a couple kids that are pretty big, but they're extremely athletic everywhere they're at. They're 180, 190 pound kids, maybe 200 pound kids that all move really well. They can play multiple positions, so they can do a lot of different things, and that creates some problems and challenges. Sometimes that speed and quickness can negate size. So that's a threat. On the outside, they like to push the ball downfield. The quarterback's got a great arm. He's got a big arm, and likes to get it downfield. And if you make one little mistake on those long pass plays, it turns into a 50-yard gain. And then you look at their record. Yeah, they're 1-7 right now. But if you look at their losses, every team that they've played and lost to has a winning record right now, except for Delta. Delta's 4-4, and they have the worst record of any team that they've lost to. And so you look at, they played a couple of 6-1 teams, a handful of 5-3, a couple of 6-2s, and they were in a lot of those games.
The BH game, they were right there.
Yeah, and so the record is very deceiving. I would like to see what their strength of schedule is, to be honest with you, because it's got to be very good.
It might be the best in our league.
Well, I'm even talking about in Division 4.
Oh, yeah.
I mean, it's got to be up there because of the record of the teams they've played is really phenomenal.
Yeah.
So they had a rough stretch of playing some really good teams early in the season, and I think maybe they lost a couple close games, and it kind of snowballed from there, lost some confidence and things like that. So, but they're coming off of a win, and we've got to be ready to play.
Well, I think that also the way they play, when they're 1-7, we watch this team play. They play with an energy about them. They're not. The season, for the most part, is kind of a tough one for them. But every film you turn on, Case, and you've turned them all on, you've seen them all. They're in every game against these teams that are going to be threats in the region in their division. I've just been very impressed with them. Maybe the last few years I've wanted to see more fight, more commitment to the sport. This team does look like they want to block, they want to tackle, and they certainly have the athletes to really get after you. So when you think through that, their plan of attack, their approach, they want to throw it, they want to get this quarterback out in space, your back end of your defense just becomes such a premium. Although I'm sure Matt Bryan will dial up timely blitzes, which he did on Friday, which got dealt in some big-time negative plays with a Jackson Lonizak big negative play and a big sack to turn those series around. Is that how you combat a team like Wauseon, where you have a creative blitz, or do you? Because I know you like to cover a lot. You're a cover guy. I think you are, and I think you cover really well. So when you see an athlete like this at quarterback and those threats on the perimeter, where's your comfort zone in a game like this? The back end.
Sometimes it depends. You think you kind of see what they're doing and you have a plan, and then come game time, you gotta change plans a little bit based on what they're doing. I think this quarterback is really athletic. I think he thrives when he gets outside of the pocket and kind of ad-libs a little bit. So it's almost, maybe we want to keep him in the pocket, make him stand in there with the line around him and try to get as many defenders back.
Controlled rush and
Yeah, and sometimes in high school, I think quarterbacks can get panicky. When okay, my initial read wasn't there because we're dropping into coverage, and now things are starting to close in a little bit, and then maybe they bail out a little bit too soon, or again they try to force something. Is that what's going to happen? I don't know, but that's an approach we've taken at times with people, and then sometimes maybe we throw some blitzes at them and try to get them out of rhythm and things like that, or and sometimes if we can generate pressure with three guys, we'll generate pressure with three guys, and then we can drop more, or we can blitz and things like that. So it's kind of a little bit of a chess game in that way, and Coach Brian does a great job of that. He's got an initial plan, and then he's got what if plan, and we'll go from there and see how things look.
When you're playing against a hyper athletic quarterback, is it sometimes you talked about wanting to keep him in the pocket because that's this Evergreen's quarterback, this quarterback to a degree, they seem to like to be on the run a little bit. They like to be athletic in space, and sometimes the defense gets themselves out of position.
Oh yeah.
When quarterbacks run around, that urge to want to step up and help in the run game or contain a quarterback, and they don't necessarily do their job, which opens up all kinds. So the discipline on our part with an athletic quarterback is probably got to be at a premium this week.
Yeah, and when quarterbacks start to scramble, now it puts the DBs in a bind because we're reading patterns, and okay, they're running a vertical, or it's an out route, or it's an in route, or whatever, and you jump that, you cover it, and then quarterback breaks contain, and all of a sudden they're in a scramble drill, and those receivers now just alter their routes. And like if I went deep, now I come back, or if I was short, now I go deep. And the DBs are seeing the quarterback run, and then that guy takes off.
Yes.
And you're now in a bind, and that's what can make it tricky. And our DBs have to be disciplined. That our kind of rule is, you don't go after the quarterback until he crosses the line of scrimmage. But it's so tempting when he starts to run outside the pocket. Oh man, I can go get him. And you think you can get him, and it's like the mouse taking the cheese. It looks good, and I know I shouldn't, but I'm going to do it anyway, and then you get trapped.
Well, you talk about the quarterback and how to play such a good-looking athlete that can really stretch the field, and sometimes you kind of want to keep them in a non-comfort zone, which could be the pocket because they create so much outside the pocket. Same thing goes when you talk about your defensive backs. The discipline it takes to stay doing your job, and you guys preach that. And the minute they don't do their job, you see them run off the sidelines. I mean, I'm telling you, and it's not like it's punitive. It's like, I've told you.
Yeah.
So come over here and watch a few snaps. You see it all the time. They get back in the game, and that corrective action, you see them get back in line.
It's a friendly reminder.
Well, my son's had many in his career, so when I'm watching him, going, okay, friendly reminder for Baxter. No, but I think that's an important part of why the success against Evergreen. You were very disciplined against their playmakers. Yes, they got us once early, and they were able to use their speed, but I think the same kind of rules apply a little bit to Wasion. They've got some good receivers, and they certainly have a quarterback that can threaten. So, again, almost like you revert back to some of those rules against Evergreen. Compare the two teams a little bit if you could. I know they're hard to compare, and you don't really do that a lot, but as a fan, this is for our fans. Evergreen had good receivers, had really good athletic quarterback. They look similar at times. How would you compare the two teams?
Very similar.
Yeah, for sure.
Formationally,
yes.
Wasion's probably going to have an H-back or a tight end more than what Evergreen did. Where Evergreen it's going to be four guys out wide. Wasion a lot of times will have an H-back, and so it changes the formation a little bit, but really it's either going to be a 3-by-1 or a 2-by-2 set. They both use motion and things like that to get the defense on the move, so not a lot of differences there. Blocking schemes can sometimes just little things where maybe one's more of a zone blocking team and one's more of a gap style. I don't know that there's a huge difference there, but maybe a little bit this week.
Well, as a fan, you go to the game and you're like, gosh, this Wasion team, it looks like Evergreen a little bit to me. You're right. The H-back does change things a little bit, but they do want to run the football a little bit too, and I think they're becoming a little bit better in the run game, largely based on their pass game. As we wrap up here a little bit, you had some players that are starting to really emerge, some younger players. Isaiah Badenhop's becoming quite a football player, and I think you saw it in the preseason a little bit. You ran him out there a couple times. He got beat on some things, maybe Sandusky Perkins, different things. He's growing. Wow, did he really show up on Friday night?
Yeah, he's one that you knew he's got all the athleticism
Yeah.
that he needs, and sometimes it's just you need reps. you need the experience of being out there, and he's just emerging as a weapon. He's got great hands. He's very quick, high IQ guy, and just gets better and better. And we knew special teams in the return game he was going to be a threat. He as a point guard in basketball, his vision, he sees everything, and I think in the return game, it's kind of the perfect thing. You can almost see the whole field as it's coming at you, and kind of know where to attack. And you see that in the basketball court with him. Just really high IQ. And in the pass game, he can improve on his blocking a little bit, but he's not afraid to mix it up with guys. But great hands, great quickness, and is going to be a weapon for us. Hopefully the rest of the year and in the future here.
Oh, you see him as a freshman that's translated. What you saw middle to late season, there was some struggles early. He was a young player in basketball, but boy, he led that team big time, and explosiveness and suddenness. And like you said, high IQ. As a point guard, you got to have that.
Well, what impressed me with basketball is defensively how he anticipated, what the guy with the ball was going to do. He, dribbling to his right. Okay, I know if I stop him, he's coming back this way, and he would beat them back where they wanted to go. And that is a good thing in football when you've got the ball and you can anticipate and kind of almost manipulate people where you want them to go so that you can counter that. But that's a big strength of his.
One other thing I wanted to talk about, you don't, because we're such a running team, and you say this, and we are. Statistics prove it. We still think we're somewhat of a passing team. We're really passing the ball a lot. We talked about that a minute ago. But your receiving core really showing up. They're not dropping balls. And you just go down the line, and even guys like Mason Smith and guys that come in for snaps, that can make plays. It seems like all of your guys on the receiving side of the ball, your receiving core, catching the football, not dropping balls, sure-handed. You've got to be efficient because you're not going to throw it 40 times. And if 40, you can throw 40 times and drop 4 or 5, and doesn't really matter. You throw it 10 times, you drop 3. That's a big deal. Yeah. Talk about your receivers briefly, because it's nothing we never really talk about. And of course, you're talking about their blocking, like that's what they got to do first and last. Like, oh my gosh! But really, they're really good pass catchers, Case.
Yeah, and Coach Miller works with them really well on all those things, and in your practice time.
This Coach Ryan Miller.
Yeah, Ryan Miller. Works with them on how to catch the ball, and just continually working at that craft and little things. But they have some natural talent there. They work hard at it. They work with the quarterbacks every day on timing and things like that, which is a big part of it. And they take a lot of pride in catching the ball. And again, it's kind of that friendly competition. You got one guy with great hands. I better not drop a ball because my playing time depends on this. And again, every week they come down and they work on blocking skills. And so that's why we've seen a huge improvement in the blocking. And then, that gives you confidence, and then it helps your catching ability too. So just a combination of guys with talent and work ethic and working at their craft. And they just get better and better, and they make plays when they need to be made.
Ryan Miller is certainly one of the most important coaches on your staff. They're all equally important, but we don't talk a lot about Ryan, but probably because he's just been so consistent. He's brilliant on the offensive side of the ball, really good teacher, and then leadership. He's developed that entire program, which is extraordinary. Ryan Miller is certainly a guy we don't talk enough about, doing a really good job. Lastly, and I just kind of want to wrap up this interview with talking about one of the most important players, I think, in a generation that we just don't talk about a lot. We should talk about him more, but we don't, and I don't know why, because he's such a great player, does so many things for you, but Max Walker's had such a good year for you. He's been able to stay away from the injury bug, banged up last year, I think, in some years past, kicking and all these different things he's doing for you on defense. He's in the all-state guard. I mean, how often in your career, even as a junior high head coach through all your JV coaching to coordinating, how often do you find a player that's so impactful in so many parts of the football team?
Well, they're pretty rare,
yeah,
and that's what makes them great.
For sure.
But he's got a footballer's mentality. He's in attack mode. He's aggressive, hard nosed, and it's the same on offense. It's the same on defense, and the same in the kicking game. But his work ethic is really what has got him. I think he started out as our punter as a freshman. and worked extremely hard at that. And that work ethic has been the same on offense and defense, and he's filled his role really well in all those areas. And now we're seeing the culmination of 4 years of really hard work. I think his teammates have kind of pushed him as well, and his leadership is something I don't think people see, but he's the vocal leader on our team, and
You can see it on defense for sure.
yeah, and guys respect him, and highly intelligent kid. Is playing with a lot more poise this year than maybe he has in years past, and it's really kind of what's driven this great year he's having.
Yeah, it's really Max Walker, such a heartbeat of the team. Basically, one of the heartbeats of this football team. Liberty Center, 8 wins, big win against Delta, an important win against Delta, against a really good coach. It's rare you get 2 Hall of Fame coaches in a season. You got 2 so far this year. You know how they prepare. So this week, Wasion comes in with an explosive offense, outstanding quarterback. I think it's going to be a very interesting game for Liberty Center, but Rex Lindgren Stadium, Kip Kern Field, Friday night. A Wasion team comes in to threaten Liberty Center. Good luck, Coach.
Thank you.